This time on One More Music Pod, we're diving into an album that rewrote the rulebook of how punk rock should sound in the 21st century.
With its explosive title track, bold narrative arc, and scathing political commentary, it's an album that stuck its middle finger up to the establishment and said no to the redneck agenda.
So, Adam, grab your eyeliner and crank up the volume. This is Green Day's rock opera masterpiece, American Idiot.
Hello and welcome to episode 5 of the series. My name's Adam.
And I'm Jack.
And yes, this episode is all about Green Day's 2004 classic, American Idiot.
An album that tells the story of Jesus of Suburbia, St. Jimmy and what's-her-name coming of age among the paranoia and unrest of post-9/11 America.
A land of make-believe that don't believe in me.
The representatives of One More Music Pod have the floor.
So Jack, back again, episode 5. How are we?
Here we are, yeah, episode 5. Yeah, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm alright, thank you, Jack. Not too bad.
So what have you been up to then this week? Listening to anything good?
I've been listening to the new Bon Iver album, Sable Fable, which has been a long time coming. Personally, I'm not sure if you're aware of Bon Iver at all, Jack.
I'm aware of Bon Iver, but
Yeah.
not really. Never really got into them, to be honest.
Okay. But yeah, great album, and I think it's kind of, he's back to his best, I guess. We're talking about the band, aren't we? Not just him as an individual.
Yeah. Is Bon Iver a band name or a person?
I believe it is a band.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, back to their best. Quite familiar sounding album to some of
Nice.
their previous stuff. And they're about to announce a tour, so I'm really excited to see if they play near us.
Cool, yeah.
What about you, Jack?
Well, not too much new stuff really this week. I did see, though, that Pulp have got a new song out.
Nice.
Yeah, stumbled across it on a new releases playlist the other
Okay.
day. Spike Island, it's called.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been giving it a listen. Yeah, really good song.
Nice. Well, we'll check that out. A recent discovery, Jack. One I'll recommend to you as well for you to give them to a listen. A band called Cloth.
Okay, yeah.
So I've known them through a band called Man of Moon, which I'm a big fan of. Both Scottish bands, both based in Glasgow, and some kind of really nice shoegazy guitar pop kind of sound. And the recent album Pink Silence was released last week, so go and give that a listen.
Cool, yeah, will do. So, getting on to today's episode, American Idiot by Green Day. So, Adam, as you know, I'm a massive Green Day fan.
You are.
American Idiot is one of my favourite albums of all time. When we sat down to pick out albums that we wanted to do for this podcast, I had to have a Green Day album on there. It was a toss-up, really, between Dookie and this one, American Idiot.
Yeah.
Both superb albums. I thought this one was worth doing just because it's quite interesting. I think the band were kind of in a stage of their careers where they were kind of, some saw them as a bit past their peak. Like they've had that kind of huge boom in the 90s.
Yeah.
And then as we got into the 2000s, they were kind of falling off the radar a little bit.
Kind of reinvented themselves. Didn't they,
and this album, it was kind of like something different, something new.
Yeah. Kind
of reinvented themselves. So I thought it was quite interesting to talk about.
I agree. And I think for me, Green Day is a band I've always liked, I guess, and obviously not as much of a fan as you. But I guess before listening to this album in detail, like we've done in preparation for this episode, for me, Green Day was those kind of 90s, early 90s, mid 90s. That was Green Day to me. But I think maybe this album potentially changed my mind in terms of which type of Green Day I prefer. So I guess more on that later.
Yeah, well, let's get into it.
Absolutely. So, Jack, as you know, our last episode was on the Smiths' album The Queen is Dead. Should we have a little look at what people said about it?
Yeah, let's do it. So we had Budget Audiophile on Instagram, said, such a great album, and Big Mouth Strikes Again is their favourite track. Dnisk1 also said that Big Mouth Strikes Again was their favourite song on the album. And Discos de Aya y de Hoy, I hope I said that right.
Absolutely nailed that.
Said that, frankly, Mr. Shankly is the best song on the record. That's also my favourite one on the record too.
It is, yeah, it is. And I Am the Art on Instagram said that The Queen is Dead is the best Smiths record, and There Is a Light That Never Goes Out is their favourite track on the album. And you got Fantastic Ms. Fox also on Instagram, said that I Know It's Over and Vicar in a Tutu are the best songs on the album.
Nice. Yeah, there was some great stuff on that album. And like I said in the last episode, it's really got me into the Smiths now.
Yeah,
so
I'm
I'll
so
definitely
happy
be.
about
Yeah.
that. We were looking, weren't we, in the week at tribute bands, Smiths tribute bands.
Yes, we'll have
So
to go
I
and check
think,
out some, won't we?
we'll
Yeah.
go and check one of those out.
And we would love to know what everyone else thinks about that album or today's album or any of the albums we cover on this show. Yeah, get in touch with us. We're on Instagram and TikTok, aren't we, Adam?
Yep.
At onemoremusicpod, and also you can email us onemoremusicpod@gmail.com. But yeah, worth giving us a follow on the Instagram or TikTok, isn't it?
Lots of bits on there now, isn't there?
Yeah, a few bits and pieces, little
Yeah.
clips from the show.
Yeah, definitely. Some facts about
a
the
few
album.
facts and figures, a bit of background info, a bit of discourse on there. So yeah, come and check it out.
Very good.
Adam, your homework from the last episode was to find us a link between the album featured in episode 4, The Queen is Dead by the Smiths, and today's featured album, American Idiot. So, how did you get on?
Well, Jack, I think you'll be happy this week. I've redeemed myself slightly, I hope.
Okay,
Anyway, I
yep.
hope. Let's have a listen to this. So, this was a tricky one, but I've managed to find a link.
Okay.
So my connection this week is between the two lead singers, Billie Joe Armstrong and Morrissey.
Okay.
So, in fact, Billie Joe did collaborate with Morrissey on a track called Wedding Bell Blues.
Ah, okay.
From one of Morrissey's albums, California Sun.
Yeah, I never knew that.
Bit of controversial, this one, though, Jack. When I had a look into it, he did face some criticism, Billie Joe did, in regards to this collaboration, because a lot of people at the time weren't a huge Morrissey fan because he was a little bit...
He's become a bit more right-wing in his older years.
Yeah, politically, there was a little bit of criticism for his support of the far-right party for Britain, which did get him in a little bit of hot water. So, great track, though. And actually, I think their voices do go quite nicely together. A weird one, but I think it does work.
Nice. Well, I've never heard this song, actually, but I will have to check it out.
Have to have
yeah.
a listen.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Well, I think fair play on that one, Adam. You've definitely redeemed yourself on that.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I did work hard on that one. So, if you can find any better links between those two albums or those two bands, please let us know at onemoremusicpod@gmail.com, One More Music Pod on Instagram, and One More Music Pod on TikTok.
So, just before we get into this week's featured album, as a bit of additional listening, we have picked 3 records from the same era as American Idiot, and we're going to decide which one we love, which one we like, and which one we're going to skip. These albums are Blink-182 by Blink-182, The Green Album by Weezer, and Hot Fuss.
The 2007 Cops and Robbers comedy starring Simon Pegg and Nick Frost.
No, Adam, that's Hot Fuzz. I'm talking about Hot Fuss, the album by The Killers.
Makes sense now.
Yes. So, anyway, what did we think? Shall we start with Blink-182?
Yeah, so really fond memories of this album. I think I was about 13 when it was released. And my memories of this album is sitting in English with my friend at the time, who was called Carl, having his CD Walkman, just playing this album over and over again. Best songs for me, I guess, on this album would be Always, Down, and of course, I Miss You.
Yeah, I think some of Blink's finest work on this record. For me, it's between this one and Enemy of the State as to which one is my favourite. I tend to flip between the two.
Yeah.
But yeah, the opening song, Feeling This, is brilliant. Immediately takes me back to spring break parties down on the beach in Florida. And I wasn't even there.
You weren't
So
even there?
I don't even know where I got that memory from.
Yeah. It's a dream, Jack, I think.
Yeah, I
It's
guess
more of a
so.
dream.
Yeah, songs like I Miss You, Obvious, Always Down, Asthenia. It's just full of some of the very best pop punk out there. So yeah, this is a great record.
Yeah, brilliant. Absolutely.
The other album, released in 2001, is The Green Album by Weezer. Now, Adam, if you could give me a one-word review of this album, what would you say?
Snooze fest.
I mean, that's 2 words, but okay, I'll give you that.
One word, put together, snooze fest.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think Weezer are a bit of an odd one for me. I mean, I kind of like the singles. Like Hash Pipe is on this album. I do like that song, but the rest of it for me, I don't know, a little bit samey, maybe.
Yeah, I don't find them interesting musically or lyrically, really. It's just a band that's never really felt anything for them. So
Yeah, fair enough.
Sad, really, but there we go. Can't win them all.
Yeah, exactly. And lastly, our third choice this week is Hot Fuss by The Killers, released in 2004.
Again, another album just made me feel very nostalgic. Some big hitters on here from my time, I guess, kind of back end of sixth form, start of university. This really reminds me of that time in my life. Really brilliant debut from the band itself. Some brilliant songs on here, such as Jenny Was a Friend of Mine, All These Things I've Done, and Smile Like You Mean It. Not Mr. Brightside, because I feel that has just been killed.
Yeah, it just won't go away, that song, will it?
It won't.
I was looking into this, and there's a record that this song holds. It's got the record for the biggest number of weeks in the UK singles charts of all time. It's had over 400 accumulative weeks since it was released in 2004. So that's basically 10 years it's spent on the charts.
It's ridiculous.
It's mental, yeah. It just will not go away.
Yeah, the band is sorted on that one song, aren't they?
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me, I'm not a huge Killers fan, but like you say, Adam, there's some good stuff on this. Obviously, Mr. Brightside is the iconic song, but there's songs like Somebody Told Me. I really enjoyed that one. That actually still sounds fresh to me after all these years. Also, I enjoyed listening to the closing song on the album called Glamorous Indie Rock and Roll. Now, Adam, I don't know if you noticed a little cheeky nod to Bohemian Rhapsody in that one.
I didn't actually.
Give it another listen.
Yeah.
About halfway through, there's a little guitar fill taken straight from Bohemian Rhapsody.
Wow, you've got a good listening ear, Jack.
Yeah. So, those are the 3 albums. So, shall we decide, where should we start? Should we go with the one we love?
Let's go One We Love, and let's see whether or not we have the same, love.
So, for me, the one I love has to be Blink-182.
Yes, same, absolutely. Love that album.
Yeah, that's an album I'm still listening to today.
Definitely. If that pops on my Spotify, I'm listening to it.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so that's one we love. Which one do we like? Adam, go on.
The Killers.
Yeah, I'd go for the same. Yeah.
Killers.
Yeah.
Like that album. It's still a very enjoyable album, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Which obviously leaves the one that we'd skip is Weezer.
Boring.
Well, that's what me and Adam think about these albums anyway. What do you all think? Let us know on Instagram or TikTok at onemoremusicpod, or email us onemoremusicpod@gmail.com. Do you think we got it right? Do you think we got it wrong? Any standout tracks for you on those albums? What's your favourite? Let us know. So, Green Day, let's have a look at them. Formed in Rodeo, California in 1987 by the lead vocalist and guitarist Billy Joe Armstrong and bassist and backing vocalist Mike Dirnt, who had been friends at school. Drummer Trey Cool joined the band in 1990. Trey had been playing in a band called The Lookouts and was approached by Armstrong and Dirnt, who were after a new drummer to replace the original drummer John Kiffmeyer, who had left the band to focus on his studies.
And a really important venue, Jack, when we were doing our research, was a place called 924 Gilman Street, which was a music venue in Berkeley, California. It opened in 1986 and is really known as a key venue in the rise of the 90s punk music revival scene. The venue hosted such bands as Operation Ivy, Rancid, AFI, The Offspring, and of course Green Day. Green Day actually played once a month at this venue in the early 90s, really refining their sound and building a strong fan base. Now, Billy Joe Armstrong has described Gilman as a mecca for Californian punk community, and a place that profoundly influenced his life and music. And in 2010, an interview with NPR, he reflected on Gilman as his escape from the confines of his small town life, offering him a space to explore new ideas and gain an education outside traditional institutions.
So let's have a look at the venue itself. So we've had a little dive into the archives and found a few pictures of the place, haven't we?
Yeah, we have, yeah.
It's such a punk rock venue, isn't it?
Oh, it is. Yeah, it's so like, I'm just looking at them now, it's so like industrial.
It looks kind of small, kind of cramped. It's dark.
Yeah, minimal lighting by the looks of it. Very dingy.
There's graffiti all over the walls, isn't there?
It is proper punk. And, you know, you go in some music venues, don't you, and they deliberately put things like this on the wall, and it's just so, like, forced, but you can just tell that this was just added to over a number of years. Yeah,
it does look amazing. And the stage itself, it's hard to really call it a stage. I think it's more of like a small step in the corner of the room. And you can imagine, like, as a band, playing in venues like that, the crowd's, like, right on top of you, aren't they?
If the audience aren't a fan of you, you're going to know.
Yeah.
Because they are right there, slap
100%.
bang in front of you.
Interestingly, it's a volunteer-run venue as well.
I like that.
Yeah. And Green Day were famously banned from playing at the venue after they signed their first record deal. The club has a rule that bands who were signed to major labels weren't allowed to play there.
Which is, I think it's a really good idea, isn't it? Because at the end of the day, if you're signing a major label, you don't need the exposure anymore.
Yeah.
And you need to make way for small.
Yeah, let someone else kind of come in and, you know, make a name for themselves.
Yeah, definitely.
And I was sort of looking around, doing my research for this episode, and the members of the band talk very fondly of this venue. I've seen so many like videos on interviews where they kind of talk about this, and they have nothing but love for that place.
Yeah.
So that was their early days. Their influences, a big influence on the band is the Ramones. Billy Joe Armstrong said of the band, Joey Ramone is the Jesus of punk. He has this endearing quality where his voice matches the way he looked. He's incredibly handsome in a praying mantis sort of way.
Oh, what a compliment that is,
Yeah,
being
that's great,
compared to
yeah.
an insect.
And you can definitely hear the Ramone, especially in like the Green Day's earlier stuff. You can definitely hear that kind of Ramones influence, can't you? The kind of short, snappy songs with the
quite basic, really, aren't they?
Yeah. The Clash as well.
Yeah, so as well as having a similar music style, both bands incorporated social and political messages into their music, often criticising the powers that be, kind of speaking about social injustice. Green Day's American Idiot is really a prime example of this, while The Clash's London Calling is filled with similar themes.
And another influence on Green Day was the Sex Pistols. Billy Joe Armstrong said about that band that Nevermind the Bollocks was one of the first punk records I ever heard. Those guitars sounded so gigantic and real, and hearing John Lydon's vocals, how he was just sort of this anti-singer, for me, it just had a huge impact.
I love that album.
My dad told me a story once about actually going to see a Sex Pistols gig.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, basically, he said that he spent the whole time just spitting on everyone.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. And then finally, a band called Husker Du, which you mentioned this to me, Jack, because it's a band I've not heard of previously.
I hadn't heard of them either, but it was just something that kept cropping up when I was doing the research.
Yeah, and you can see why listening to them, can't you? The influence that they have.
Yeah, absolutely.
On
Yeah,
Green Day.
they're sort of like an 80s American post-punk band,
Yeah.
aren't they? There is, definite similarities in the styles of music.
That kind of fast, aggressive, raw punk music.
Yeah,
that
absolutely,
The Green Day have clearly got in their sound.
Bands from the 60s and 70s were also a big influence on Green Day. So acts such as The Who, Led Zeppelin or the Beatles. These bands have often been cited by the band as music that they listened to when they were growing up. Their 2000 album, Warning, has a big 1960s acoustic rock influence. The song Hold On, for example, sounds very Beatles-esque.
And I also noticed, Jack, listening to some of the back catalogue of Green Day, songs such as She and Good Riddance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very Beatles-esque in their kind of vocal layering, but with that added kind of punkness to it.
Yeah, and The Who's drummer, Keith Moon, an obvious influence on Trey Cool's drumming, both in terms of the playing style, so heavy use of the kick drum, or the bass drum, as we say in England, but also his animalistic, high-energy, over-the-top stage presence. I've seen them both doing, stage dives and things like that, knocking the kits over.
Yeah.
The band have also said that in interviews, a big influence on American Idiot was The Who's album Tommy and Sgt. Pepper by the Beatles. They were inspired by albums like these to create a concept album of their own. Okay,
so I guess, Jack, we need to look at the genre itself, pop punk, and what is it? So it's a fusion of punk music and pop music, defined by its fast pace, energetic tempos, and it differs from other punk genres by taking a heavier inspiration from 1960s bands such as the Beatles, the Kinks, and the Beach Boys.
Yeah, musical themes centre around teenage rebellion, anti-suburbanism, that desire to break free and escape the tedium of everyday life. A song that comes to my mind straight away is What's My Age Again by Blink-182. The genre saw a huge rise in popularity in the mid to late 90s and also the early 2000s. Some popular acts of the time were the likes of Blink-182 and The Offspring, Sum 41, Fall Out Boy, Jimmy Eat World, My Chemical Romance, Avril Lavigne, Good Charlotte, Paramore, Bowling for Soup, and of course Green Day.
I'm thinking, Jack, do we have any kind of pioneers of pop punk in this country?
Well,
what do you think of?
If you go back to kind of like the 80s, you've kind of got like the Buzzcocks, haven't you?
Yeah.
They were a big one.
Stiff Little Fingers.
Yeah. 90s and early 2000s, of course. We've got the likes of Busted,
yeah,
McFly.
Which is I never thought Busted would come up in this episode, but there they are. They are very pop punk.
Yeah, you know what? Year 3000 by Busted, one of my favourite pop punk songs.
Nice.
Yeah,
it's great. They're a great band. They're a really good band. I mean, it's very much of the time, isn't it? But they're a great band.
So before we get into American Idiot, I think it's important just to have a bit of a look at the band's previous albums and a few of their moments to see how they've evolved over the years.
Yep.
Debut release was Smoothed Out Slappy Hours, which came out in 1991. Very raw, unpolished album, that I think, but kind of shows a bit of a hint of what the band would go on to do. Also released in 1991 is Kaplunk, which includes an early recording of Welcome to Paradise. Looking back on this album, it has the feel of a bit of a Dookie prototype. It has a similar sound, but isn't quite refined enough to really stand out in the way that Dookie did. And speaking of Dookie, this came out in 1994.
Yeah, and I guess this was a real breakthrough moment for the band, wasn't it? And it really just sit alongside American Idiot as Green Day's most highly regarded record. And we, at the start, we said, didn't we weren't sure which one to talk about, and this was very much up there as a potential. Contains songs such as Basket Case, When I Come Around, Welcome to Paradise, and Longview. Won a Grammy in 1995 for the Best Alternative Music Album. And I think for me and you, Jack, it's one of our favourites, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a brilliant album. I also remember do you remember the Basket Case video as well?
I do, yeah.
That's sort of a mental institution.
Yeah,
it was so good.
It's such a brilliant video.
Yeah.
I did forget about that, yeah.
Billy Joe said on the album, it was kind of an accidental thing. We didn't really know that we were going to be huge. We were just doing what we do and doing it for ourselves and just trying to have fun.
And then in 1997, the album Nimrod was released, which is still a notable album that saw the band maybe going in a slightly different direction in terms of styles. It wasn't just punk rock, which they were known for.
Yeah, I think it's important just to mention that, isn't it? This is kind of when they started to kind of venture into different genres, wasn't it?
Yeah.
A few classic moments from the band. This first one is well worth a watch on YouTube. It's the classic mud fight at their Woodstock
scenes.
Their Woodstock 1994 gig.
It looks like so much fun.
Yeah, so that festival, I think it had rained the entire weekend and the place was just a bit of a mud bath.
Yeah.
And about halfway through the set, someone starts chucking mud onto it.
Yeah.
And I think Mike Dern sort of said sarcastically, "Oh yeah, that's a great idea. You should totally throw mud everywhere."
Yeah.
So then the whole crowd
just bombarded the band. And I think they were told to stop, weren't they? But stop playing the band and they just carried on.
It's amazing.
Proper punk behaviour, that is, yeah.
Cigarettes and Valentines, the Lost album. This was an interesting story. So
yeah, I didn't know anything about this.
Yeah, due for release in 2003, so the year before American Idiot came out, Cigarettes and Valentines was going to be the follow-up to the band's 2000 album, Warning. However, the master tapes were stolen from the band's studio, and instead of re-recording it, they decided to just start again with a new project.
Yeah.
Which turned out to be American Idiot.
Yeah. Can you imagine how that must feel?
Yeah, it must be gutted, yeah.
All that work, all that effort just kind of disappears. And they did say in an interview that the band actually felt like they'd lost part of themselves. And rumours are that if it would have gone on and been released, then it had quite a garage rock influence to it, which would have been interesting.
I suppose that was the sort of era of like when the Strokes were massive, wasn't it?
Yeah,
so it probably would have made
kind
sense.
of the wave of that. But who knows how it would have sounded.
Yeah, and I suppose if we did get that album, would we have got American Idiot?
Well, this is it, isn't it? This is the question.
Yeah. And I think we need to mention Broadway as well. 2010, the American Idiot album was turned into a stage show. This won 2 Tony Awards and a Grammy for the Best Musical Show album. Billy Joe Armstrong as well also made a handful of appearances in the show as the character Saint Jimmy.
Nice. So Jack, just on that, it is very interesting. What do you think about albums that are made into Broadway shows?
Yeah, I think it shows that the album does have to have a strong narrative to sustain a full-blown show or film, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
I've never actually seen the Broadway version of American Idiot, but I would be interested to see the show version, just see how the two compare.
Yeah, me too. I think there's a few clips on YouTube, but I don't know if the full thing's on there. But this was quite a while ago now, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So I doubt it'll ever come back, unfortunately.
Yeah, you never know.
Another notable examples of albums that have been made into Broadway shows, really famous example, or 2 famous examples, I guess. You've got the Tommy by The Who, which is a rock opera that was about a dumb and deaf boy who becomes a pinball champion.
Yep.
And then a really famous example is...
Yep, Mamma Mia by ABBA, of course, a few years ago. A musical about a young woman who invites 3 men to her wedding in the hopes of finding her father.
Bit of a weird concept,
bit weird,
isn't it? A bit unusual.
Yeah, Pierce Brosnan in the film, of course.
Oh, what a handsome man. Probably one of my favourite James Bonds as well.
So those are some of our standout moments from the history of Green Day.
Yep.
We'd love to hear your favourite memories and stories about them. So again, get in touch, onemoremusicpod@gmail.com, or give us a follow on @onemoremusicpod on Instagram or TikTok and let us know.
Yeah, and I think if anyone has seen the Broadway show, let us know, because we'd be interested to get your take on that.
Right then, it's time to get into the album itself.
Jack, just before, because I could see it in your face,
Cool, yeah.
you were about to do your jingle, weren't you? Now, let's go back to the week.
Okay.
Let's remember what we talked about. I've sorted a jingle out, haven't I? I've sent you the jingle over, and you've promised that you'll put this into the podcast.
Yeah, I'm going to put it in right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Jack, I trust you that will be in the episode.
Yeah, of course, mate. Yeah, no worries.
Okay, good stuff.
Da-da-da-da-da-da, the album!
Jack, what are you doing?
Nothing. So, American Idiot by Green Day. Recorded between April 2003 and March 2004. Released on September the 21st, 2004. Recorded at the Studio 880 in Hollywood on the Reprise label. The producer was Rob Cavallo and the Green Day band themselves. Reached number 1 in the UK and the USA.
And the album cover itself, I think you'd agree, Jack, very iconic.
Yep.
Simple, stark design, a black background with an image of a hand holding a heart-shaped grenade. Any metaphors, Jack, you think this kind of represents?
Yeah, so first of all, obviously it's a very political album. Maybe the grenade represents the explosive nature of American politics at this time.
Yeah, a lot going on, wasn't there?
Yeah, the Iraq War was going on at that time, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's kind of shaped like a love heart as well, isn't it? So the song She's a Rebel features the line, she's holding on my heart like a hand grenade. So this ties in with the love story aspect of the album.
So, Jack, before we get into the tracks themselves, just a reminder of our social media. One More Music Pod on Instagram, One More Music Pod on TikTok. We'd love to hear from you and see what you think about the album. Opening track, American Idiot, one of the greatest protest songs of all time.
Yeah, it has to be up there, doesn't it? And what a start to an album. Like, I love that guitar riff. It's so hooky, just so powerful. Really grabs your attention, doesn't it?
Definitely. And I'm thinking protest songs are a thing that's kind of happened since the dawn of time. But any others you can think of, Jack?
Well, if we look back to our second ever episode, we of course talked about Marvin Gaye's What's Going On, didn't we? And the song What's Going On, another very powerful protest song. Obviously, you can always check out that episode if you want to learn more.
You can go back and have a little look at that, absolutely.
Yeah, any other songs we can think of?
Bob Dylan, Blowing in the Wind. Again, very, very famous protest song. Give Peace a Chance, of course, with his bed protest. And Born in the USA by Bruce Springsteen, which I didn't really know was a protest song. But it is, looking at the lyrics.
Absolutely. So this song, American Idiot, it's essentially about the mass media, isn't it? And how it orchestrated a campaign of idiocy and paranoia amongst the American population, particularly around America's involvement in Iraq at the time.
And in an interview about this song, Billy Joe, he felt that American news had crossed a bit of a line from journalism into reality television, kind of showcasing a lot of violent footage which was intercut with adverts.
Yeah.
Kind of that boundary between kind of fact and fiction, really, you know, a film or a TV show, what was happening out in the real world. And at the time, I think that the band were feeling quite disenfranchised about being American, and in the same interview, they actually stated that the American flag means nothing to them and to burn the fucking thing. So, strong words there from the
absolutely,
band.
yeah. Musically, very simple song, isn't it, really?
Yeah, it is.
Composed of 4 chords, written in A-flat major. Again, it's that mix of melodic rock and pop punk.
Quite a short song as well, isn't it, Jack? It's only 2 minutes, 55 seconds.
It's kind of short, snappy, driving riffs, aggressive lyrics, lots of energy in it, isn't there? Kind of real. It's a big sort of standout kind of, slap in the face. Like
huge opening song.
Yeah,
huge opening songs. And you can see why it was nominated for so many awards. And I think, not only is the song brilliant, but you've also got that music video as well.
Yeah, I love that video. They're sort of it's like an empty aircraft hangar, I think,
yeah, it
isn't
is,
it? Yeah. They're sort of playing in front of a big green and white American flag, aren't they?
Yeah.
And I think it's sort of painted on. The paint sort of starts to melt and
drip down, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Like, so much energy. It's lots of fast cuts as well.
Yeah, it is.
The outfits are so cool as well. I love the kind of the black shirts and the red ties. Yeah, I'm a big fan of that video. So, next song, Jesus of Suburbia. So, after the punchy opening song, we get the epic 9-minute narrative about disillusioned youth that is Jesus of Suburbia.
Yeah, the main character on this album is Jesus of Suburbia. And this song serves as a bit of a thematic keystone to the album with, interestingly, 5 distinct movements that each have their own style and tempo. Very ambitious piece of songwriting, Jack.
Yeah, we'll talk about this more as we go through the album, but this was really such a big sort of statement, this was, wasn't it? It's the kind of move away from simple kind of pop-punk music into kind of big kind of, rock operas, wasn't it, really?
Yeah.
So the sections of the song, we've got Jesus of Suburbia, which introduces the story's main character and his nihilistic worldview shaped by TV, soda, and broken family life. The next section is City of the Damned, which describes his escape from the conformity of suburban life and his entry into a decaying urban landscape. I Don't Care is the next section, which is a burst of rage and apathy. This section represents the emotional climax of his rebellion. Dearly Beloved is a brief, introspective lull as he questions his loneliness and choices. And finally, Tales of Another Broken Home concludes with his decision to leave everything behind, embracing uncertainty over a life he can't stand. So basically, it's a story of a character who's living a pretty mundane life and wants to kind of rebel and go out in search of more, basically.
Yeah. Again, quite forward-thinking, really, wasn't it?
Yeah,
in terms of the songwriting. And So Billy Joel told Rolling Stone, it felt like I was in uncharted territory really for the first time. I'd taken my songwriting to another level. It's almost doo-woppy and then ends up almost going into this sort of Black Sabbath direction. It's kind of around the world in 8 minutes or something, and Jesus of Suburbia ended up becoming the main character that ran through the entire album.
Yeah, so as we said, it's over 9 minutes long, which is Green Day's second longest song, with the first also being on this album, which we will discuss a bit later on. So after Jesus of Suburbia, we've got a run of songs that are all paired together. We've got Holiday and Boulevard of Broken Dreams. We've got Are We the Waiting and St. Jimmy. We've got Give Me Novocaine and She's a Rebel. And then we've got Extraordinary Girl and Letterbomb. So Adam, I was kind of wondering, why do you think it is that they paired the songs together in that way?
I guess it's for you to kind of listen to the album in full, that they are together thematically, they belong together, there's a story being told. So rather than having them as individual songs, it just makes the listener think, yeah, they are kind of one song together and they fit together, and there's a reason for that.
I kind of, if you don't listen to them all together, maybe you'd miss elements of the story.
Yeah.
So it makes you listen to the whole thing.
Yeah, it does, doesn't
one.
it?
Yeah.
And this album wouldn't make sense listening to individual tracks, would it? It very much is a full story.
Yeah, so the first pairing is Holiday and Boulevard of Broken Dreams. Holiday, what a great song this is. It's the second unmistakable anti-war and protest anthem on the album. The track takes direct aim at American conservatism. When Billy Joe wrote it, he saw American politics as deeply divided, where Republican strategies often involved marginalising one group to gain favour with another. Lyrics like, "Oh, I beg to dream and differ from the hollow lies. This is the dawning of the rest of our lives on holiday." These reflect a sharp critique of political apathy and the public's detachment from the realities unfolding in their own country.
Musically, the rhythm drives the message home. It's built on simple chord progression, but it's incredibly effective. And you can just tell this song would be electric live, wouldn't it? And I think we've looked at live performances, haven't we? And this is a highlight.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that breakdown section in the middle of the song.
Yeah,
where it's like, the representative of California now has the floor, and that great bass line from Mike Dirt, the kind of boom,
flows really well, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's brilliant. I love that. And then this song then moves into Boulevard of Broken Dreams.
Written during a brief period when Billy Joe was living alone in New York City, Boulevard of Broken Dreams captures the profound sense of isolation one can feel in the midst of a bustling metropolis. The song's title is inspired by a painting by Gottfried Helnwin, which portrays pop culture icons like James Dean, Elvis Presley and Marilyn Monroe gathered in a lonely downtown diner. I guess that those figures are kind of united together, aren't they, through not only their fame, but all came to quite tragic, very premature ends, didn't they?
Yeah, it's cheerful stuff, isn't it?
It is.
One of the more introspective songs on the album. Next up, we've got Are We the Waiting and St. Jimmy.
My favourite track on the album, this one is, Jack.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, unusually, I don't think it's a popular song. I know it's not one of your favourites.
No, Are We the Waiting isn't one of my favourites, but, tell me about it, Adam.
I just like the kind of the slower anthemic nature to this track, and it just serves as a bit of a transition in this album storyline, focusing again on that main character, Jesus of Suburbia, leaving his hometown and searching for kind of purpose in this disillusioned world. And that repeat of those lyrics, we are the waiting, kind of creates that sense of longing and uncertainty, and really reflects sort of feelings of isolation and aimlessness that, again, really resonates today, doesn't it?
Yeah, to be honest, not a standout track on the album for me. As far as I'm concerned, we are the waiting for the next song.
Oh, nice one.
Very good, very good. Which is, of course, St. Jimmy, which I do absolutely love.
It's a great song.
My name is Jimmy, and you better not wear it out. Suicide Commando that your mama talked about. King of the 40 Thieves, and I'm here to represent the needle in the vein of the establishment. Yeah, this song is just pure punk rock, isn't it? High energy, simple, hooky guitar riffs that drives the song. You've got Trey Cool's frenetic drumming. Billy Joe Armstrong snarls out the lyrics on the song with such intensity. Yeah, this is one of my favourites on the album.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's a loud and explosive song, isn't it, from the very start? And it does really grab you. Very character-driven, these songs. And St. Jimmy being the alter ego of the main character, Jesus of Suburbia, with Jimmy representing a more darker, reckless kind of nature to Jesus of Suburbia. And it does feel like a turning point in the album, where everything from this point onwards is a bit more frenetic, energetic and chaotic, really representing that alter ego of St. Jimmy. Track 5, Give Me Novocaine and She's a Rebel. So first part of the song, Give Me Novocaine, hidden gem for me, I think, Jack.
Yeah.
It's about, again, Jesus of Suburbia trying to escape this chaotic alter ego of his, St. Jimmy, by numbing himself with drugs.
So the song starts off mellow and almost soothing, but then it builds into something much louder and more intense. Really complements the emotional depth of the lyrics, that desire for escape and numbness, which is something that features throughout the album, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then that transition into She's a Rebel was absolutely flawless. You can totally see why this album was eventually adapted into a Broadway show. Got that seamless storytelling vibe.
Yeah, they're paired really well together, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. And then, yeah, She's a Rebel. This is the song that introduces the character What's-Her-Name, who is the rebellious female character of this story. It portrays What's-Her-Name as a symbol of defiance and empowerment. The lyrics praise her independence, strength, and refusal to conform to social expectations. It blends catchy, fast-paced punk rhythms with vivid imagery. For me, kind of like the St. Jimmy song, one of my favourites, real kind of punky, upbeat, high-tempo song, isn't it?
Hockey chorus as well.
Absolutely, yeah. I really like this song.
Into track 6, Extraordinary Girl, Letter Bomb. So, Extraordinary Girl, interesting start to this song. Kind of Indian-inspired beats. I'm not sure if you got that, Jack. I think I hear a sitar on there.
Yeah, it's not what you'd expect from a Green Day song, but yeah.
No, it's really not. And in terms of what it reminds me of, I know we mentioned this band earlier on, Jack, but this song in particular does remind me of Busted.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that, Adam.
No, nothing wrong with that. There's a bit of hate online for this song, but it's not that bad. It's nothing particularly special, but it's I guess a solid pop punk song about love.
Yeah, it's kind of light, catchy, fun. I think I agree with you. It's not one of the best songs on the album, but it's decent. It's not horrendous.
Yeah.
Which then moves into Letter Bomb. Nobody likes you. Everyone left you. They're all out without you having fun. Fun fact for you, Adam, on this. So, the intro to this song was sung by Kathleen Hanna of the band Bikini Kill.
Okay.
She was also a friend of Kurt Cobain and coined the phrase "Smells Like Teen Spirit," which later became the title of the band's breakthrough hit.
Good fact, Jack. I like that.
Yeah, thank you.
Good fact. So, I guess the song itself serves as a bit of a plot twist. It's a letter from What's-Her-Name to Jesus of Suburbia, calling him out for being fraudulent and more interested in drug taking and being part of the scene rather than actually rebelling against the system. You're not the Jesus of Suburbia. The St. Jimmy is a figment of your father's rage and your mother's love. Made me the idiot America.
It's signature Green Day and actually has a feeling of the song 86 from their Insomniac album. So track 7 is Wake Me Up When September Ends.
Not a fan of this song, to be honest.
Interesting. This song has actually grown on me over the years, Adam. Never used to be a fan, but I now think it's one of the best on the album. It's a song about loss and how grief can linger and the way that specific moments or memories can trigger those feelings and how difficult it is to move on from those feelings. A very heartfelt song, I think, and I really like the way the song is structured, the way it gradually builds to the crescendo at the end.
Billy Joe wrote this song about the death of his father, speaking about the song on Howard Stern's radio show. He said, I think about him every day, really. I kind of avoided writing about him for many years, and then finally having a breakthrough that felt good. It wasn't like a negative emotion so much, but it was just kind of like honouring him.
And then track 8 is Homecoming. Now, this is the second epic rock opera sprawl of this album. It serves as a sort of third act to the American Idiot storyline and closes the story. Like Jesus of Suburbia, it's split into 5 separate movements.
So we have the death of St. Jimmy, which narrates the symbolic death of the protagonist's rebellious alter ego, St. Jimmy, and it's the end of Jesus' adventure, and yet has been left with nothing. East 12th Street, focusing on disillusionment and conformity, featuring a more subdued, introspective tone. Nobody Likes You, which is sung by bassist Mike Dirnt. It adds a raw emotional layer touching on isolation and regret. Jesus is actually talking to himself here. He's wasted so much time waiting for something to happen, but now he's left with nothing. And then into Rock and Roll Girlfriend, sung by drummer Trey Cool. This section is a punky, autobiographical account of his life. Could it be seen as a letter to Jesus of Suburbia on how to live a real punk lifestyle?
Yeah, this is my favourite section of Homecoming. I think Trey Cool definitely needs to sing more lead vocals on songs.
With a name like Trey Cool, you've got to get involved.
Yeah.
And then finally into We're Coming Home Again, a rousing finale that ties the whole piece together, reflecting on coming back to one's roots. Jesus reflects on his life and the world around him and decides that there is not much he can do to change it, nor does he really want to. Home is the safety net that will always be there for him. Nice.
Yeah, so thematically, Homecoming explores the collapse of youthful rebellion and a return to reality, echoing the concept of a personal and cultural reckoning. So it's kind of saying, I wanted to rebel against the system, gave it a go, didn't really work out. I think I'd rather just go home and eat snacks, watch telly.
Yeah, easier, innit?
Yeah.
Easier. I think we've all kind of felt like that rebellious nature of kind of, fighting against the system and all of that, but then sometimes you just want to go
just can't be bothered, can you? Yeah.
And watch Bake Off.
There's nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with that, but it's a very interesting song, isn't it? It's got a bit of
brilliant,
everything, range of moods and tempos, with the first section being quite raw and aggressive, fast-paced, all that punk energy, and then it flows into this melodic kind of centerpiece, with each part have its own vibe, and it's impressive. It's really, really, really good.
Again, like we said with Jesus of Suburbia, this is a huge feat of songwriting. Obviously, Bohemian Rhapsody, as we mentioned, kind of comes to mind. Pink Floyd, they weren't strangers to a nice sort of 20-minute song, were they?
No, they weren't.
Kind of elements of that as well.
Yeah.
The Black Parade by My Chemical Romance.
Another great album.
Yeah. The album then ends with track 9. What's the name?
Yeah, so the finale being a powerful, if melancholic, ending to the album. What's the Name seems to hint at a relationship where one person hasn't fully moved on, but it isn't clear whether that's the protagonist or somebody else. The title, What's Her Name, plays into this, and it reflects on that kind of fading nature of a past love, with the protagonist struggling to remember even her name. And
unlike a lot of the album, which is very politically charged, this track is introspective and nostalgic. It feels hopeful in a bittersweet way. The character, Jesus of Suburbia, is coming to terms with his past mistakes and learning to move forward. It's a moment of quiet reflection, marking the end of his journey, but also the beginning of a new chapter. Lyrics like, I remember the face, but I can't recall the name. Musically, it's a big anthemic end to the album. Remember whatever, it seems like forever ago.
And quite an optimistic end to the album, I think, Jack. Quite a nice way to finish.
Yeah, great little send-off, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, how has this album been reviewed over the years? So, let's start by getting the thoughts of the band themselves.
Yeah.
Billy Joe Armstrong gave his thoughts on the album's legacy, speaking in 2024. He said, "It changed everything for me. It really made me feel like I can spread my wings. It proved to me that if you have the guts to do it, then you can make it happen. When you have a hunch that it's time to make a big statement musically and it gets acknowledged, it's the best feeling ever."
Trey Cool, when he spoke to Kerrang, that's a blast from the past, Kerrang, isn't it?
Yeah.
The difference between Dookie and American Idiot is pretty simple. The first time, the success was an accident. The second time, it was on purpose.
And then Mike Dirnt, in an interview with Guitar World, said that we didn't set out to make a concept album, we just wanted to throw away all the rules and make the best album that we could. But the themes started to emerge: disillusionment, questioning authority, a sense of searching for something real, and it just took on a life of its own.
Now on to, I guess,
the critics.
The critics, yeah. Rolling Stone called it the most important rock album of the year, noting its boldness in tackling political and social themes, especially in a post-9/11 world.
Yep, and then Pitchfork appreciated how the album mixed punk energy with theatricality, calling it a punk rock opera that was both accessible and emotionally intense.
And then finally, Enemy, they recognised the album's shift towards more grandiose, narrative-driven music and described it as one of the most vital albums of the decade.
So Adam, our final thoughts on the album. We've been listening to it this week. What have you made of it?
Well, I guess I've kind of developed a new appreciation for Green Day themselves. So again, thank you, Jack, for putting this on
You are
our
welcome,
list.
yeah.
This album really is fantastic. There isn't a weak track on it, and I kind of totally get why it received all the praise. And I never thought I'd say this because I'm not a fan of kind of theatre or Broadway, but I am gutted not to have seen this on Broadway. Standout tracks for me, as I've said before, We Are the Waitings, St. Jimmy, and Jesus of Suburbia.
For me, it's just a superb record, and it is one of my all-time favourites. It definitely sits in my top 5 favourite records of all time. It just never seems to get old. I was lucky enough to see the band play the album in full last year on their Saviours tour.
Yeah, very
Went and saw them. They played the whole thing start to finish and absolutely loved it. Being able to see them play it live was such a joy. So many great songs on the album. You got American Idiot, Holiday, St. Jimmy, Jesus of Suburbia, She's a Rebel, all standout tracks. If I had to pick one favourite though, I'd probably go for Homecoming.
Good choice.
So that is what me and Adam had to say on American Idiot. But again, we'd love to know your thoughts on the album, so please do get in touch, either via email, onemoremusicpod@gmail.com, or we're on Instagram and TikTok at onemoremusicpod.
Yeah, do give us a follow. We put up some really good stuff, don't we? So clips from the show, kind of fun facts about the album. I might even post a few of my records, Jack, as well. So, Jack, next week's album is Rumours by Fleetwood Mac.
Nice.
A classic album, I'm sure you would agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what's coming next, don't you?
I do.
I'm going to set you a little bit of homework. So, can you find a link between this week's album, American Idiot by Green Day, and next week's album, Rumours by Fleetwood Mac?
I will see what I can come up with. You did quite well this week, Adam, so the pressure's on.
Pressure is on. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Good luck. So, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, thanks for listening. See you next time.
Goodbye.